This is He Who Moans, Doctor Who reviews. I only complain because I like Doctor Who and I care. And I overanalyse too much because, whatever, it's just my opinion. This week on He Who Moans, this picture of moss. It's a very fluffy type of moss. I do appreciate it for what it is, but there's a little to be desired. I give it a 7 out of 10. So yeah. What's with you, Internet? It wasn't that bad. It wasn't worse than anything I've seen this series. Like, what do you have against Death in Heaven? Did it break into your house and shit on your living room carpet? And I do also think it's much better than Kill the Moon, because fuck Kill the Moon. Fuck it. I can never win, can I? When everyone loves Doctor Who, I'm bored with it. When everyone hates Doctor Who, I think it's okay at best, incredibly contrived and doesn't really know what it's doing at worst. And yes, it's yet another example of Moffat's lack of ability to follow through on empty promises, because 1 hour, the amount of shit this finale was trying to do, and you want all this done in 1 hour. Yeah, it's thoroughly lackluster based on last week's one, and it feels incredibly rushed when looking at what it could have done. Yet why the fuck was the Nethersphere barely in this? I wanted my bizarre heaven is an office thing. Where did all that potential from part 1 go? Oh yeah, anyone remember the trailer?
Clara?
Do I have your attention? You will never step inside your Tardis again.
I'm not Clara Oswald. Clara Oswald has never existed.
Yeah, I kind of want to see that episode. Yet whoever edited that trailer, you've got skills. It looked like an entirely different story. Then again, looking at what we got that was made into that trailer, it feels like the script was written with that trailer in mind. The specific moments that you could patch into another potential story just to throw us off, they feel a tad out of place. Like with Clara pretending that she's the Doctor and saying Clara Oswald has never existed. It felt out of place to me, and like these moments were written with the intention of that trailer. And if that is the case, why didn't you make that episode? I'm kind of interested to see the episode where Clara reveals that she wasn't who she seemed to be for so long. Again, I thought she was an Auton. Yeah, what about Clara's an agent of the Nestine who are waging war on the Time Lords for destroying their planet in the Time War, and she infiltrates the Doctor's life under the guise of an assistant? Yeah, think about that. That'd actually be kind of unique, wouldn't it? Yeah, why weren't we headed there, Moffat? What the hell happened to that flowchart that everyone's convinced that you still have for some reason? Oh, I'm sorry, Stuart. But look, we have flying Cybermen doing that bit from Nightmare at 20,000 feet. Okay, whatever, I'll take it at this point. Yeah, what we got I don't think was nearly as bad as everyone throwing their toys out of the pram are saying it was. Death in Heaven was wasted potential, yes, but what it actually does isn't that bad. What it could have done was much better, yes, but I'm going to try and focus on what this episode was rather than what it could have been.
A mission to...
No! Why, Moffat? You were onto a really good thing with Seb. Like, why does he only have like 2 lines in this? And of course, Death in Heaven does pretty much nothing with the Nethersphere that I was saying last time it really should have done. I was really interested in it. Like, looking back at when we had those first tricklings at the end of The Caretaker, yeah, this is probably the biggest wasted opportunity in the entire Moffat era. But Death in Heaven does do some things I can appreciate with the time it's got at its disposal, and regarding the fanboy revisionism, unlike what you'd expect given past opinions that I've expunged, I found myself asking, is it really a bad thing to what it's done? Because Doctor Who is a show that should be all about moving forward and reinvention. With regards to the Cybermen spreading by spores, I did think it was an interesting idea, and the Cybermen are all about technological progression, and here they present you with a more efficient way of converting people, weaponising the dead. I sort of like that idea, but I do think it's weaker in the horror element than the old way of the Cybermen drag a human off screen, cut them to pieces and put them back together with their humanity gone. But thinking back, the old show never really did a whole lot with that idea to begin with. It's mostly been left up to Big Finish to do actually interesting things with the Cybermen, because they're a really dark idea for a monster, probably too dark for Doctor Who really, and so they've never really done that much with them. I mean, Classic Who did have a tendency to just treat them like generic robot people a fair bit too, so yeah, okay, the Cybermen are my favourite Doctor Who monster, but I just think it's got to the point where I can't be pissed off when Doctor Who does stuff like this anymore, because I just expect it, and I've probably just been watching too long, and I just find myself asking, why should I be annoyed about it? It's just the same thing that always happens. So yeah, this is why when Cyber Danny took his faceplate off, I wasn't annoyed like some people were. I just said to myself, different doesn't directly mean shit. And yes, the horrific element of the Cybermen replacing human limbs and flesh with plastic and metal, fine, whatever, I do still have Big Finish after all. So that's how I ended up thinking that if they'd actually put more effort into characterising Danny throughout the series, this would be an entirely appropriate emotional ending for the character. I would think this was a very good ending for him. But the problem is they didn't really do that. So I just ended up watching this scenario play out in the graveyard, imagining a universe where we actually had Danny as a consistent presence throughout the series, instead of just standing off in the corner of shots going, "Hi, I still exist. Yeah, we're going to do more with me later," and then not doing more with him later. Yeah, Danny is totally wasted potential. It's not a problem with Samuel Anderson. The guy's a good actor, but this ending would have worked so much better if he'd actually had any involvement with more than just a couple of episodes of the series. I never felt I had a chance to know who he was, which was really annoying because I felt he had potential, so the ending was nowhere near as effective as it could have been. But based on what we saw last week, I was at the very least engaged in what was happening. But yeah, an assistant needed to be converted into a Cyberman at some point. That was what I kept thinking, and while Danny's still only tenuously classed as an assistant to me, I think this would have been a decent enough execution of the idea had there not been a shit ton to be desired throughout the series. Although I'm sure that someone's going to tell me that the existence of Orson Pink and a bunch of other loose ends means that he'll come back at some point, and then maybe further down the line we'll do some more stuff with Danny as a character, but here's the thing, I don't care. I really, really don't care that maybe we'll do it in the future, because maybe they're saving it for later never excuses the here and now for me, and I just see it as another excuse for Moffat to endlessly drag out weaving more loose ends. But yeah, let's dispense with the bile about what Moffat will inevitably let us down with in the future. Bile about the here and now. Okay, main problem with Death in Heaven is we spend so long not really sure who's in charge of the operation. Our two main villains spend so much time in the background of their own story. The Master's entire reasoning behind this plan is elusive until the final reveal, at which point you go, right, that's it? Again. Yeah, maybe I've just developed Moffat's Stockholm Syndrome by this point, as being fucked off with another disappointing reveal is pretty much routine by this point. Actually, routine is probably a better word to sum up Season 8, way better than departure. The Cybermen are just slave drones really, they're not really in charge of the situation, which as a huge fan of Cybermen, it feels kinda wrong to me. The reason they're scary is they're here to replace humanity and human flesh, not they're basically zombies or Iron Man. And you'd think that the Master is the dominant force here, but she isn't either really. So about the Master, Michelle Gomez does a fine job with the Master as I expected, and while the subtextually fucking was still there, it was less so than Moffat usually is with female characters, and she was sort of intimidating, and I can't help but point out how incredibly underused she is. She's just sort of there to name-check our quotient of crazy lines, a couple of token dark moments, say her main purpose was to show the Doctor they're not so different after all, and then she's gone. That's it, really. She doesn't really do much. I mean, her entire plan is pretty much covered by the Doctor explaining it. It was a cool plan, yes, but having it covered by about a minute's worth of dialogue from our hero feels a bit, well actually no, very weak. Yeah, maybe this was Moffat being scared away from doing more stuff with the female Master because of how shit he is at female characters these days, but that begs the question, why make the Master a lady at all if you're going to underuse her to this extent? She just doesn't really seem all that threatening because of how underused she was. If you compare it to, say, Sound of Drums, which I didn't exactly like that much, but there the Master is in control of the situation. He's a dominating presence. Whereas here, she gets captured about 15 minutes in, and then when she finally reveals her motivation, it's just a moment of, okay. Yeah, I feel it was a huge misstep to make the Doctor president of the world, because he's basically already won the story in that situation. The danger's just sort of building for the entire episode. We have our Cybermen doing the invasion of the body snatchers thing, and everything looks like it's about to kick off, but then it doesn't. Yeah, no shit are people going to hate you doing that, Moffat. I personally didn't, though, because being epic doesn't always directly equal good. I mean, Time of the Doctor had an emphasis on the word epic, and it was a complete bucket of shit in my opinion. And back then, I was arguing that simpler can often equal better. Look at Blink. But here, we have a simple idea dominating most of the episode. Danny and Clara in the graveyard, and heart-wrenching emotional, etc. insert script here. But here's the thing, if you actually look at the rest of it, it's got all the stakes and makings of a big climactic epic finale thing again, shoved off screen. Weaponizing the dead, all the graves on Earth are about to give birth. It's the same world-ending scenario by way of classic Doctor Who monster like the Russell finales, and yet we spend most of it on board a plane and in one graveyard on Earth. He hasn't really simplified his story if you think about it. He's done the same thing as usual, but focused principally on one aspect of it, while giving glancing nods to the other bits, and that's kind of made his bad guys not exactly feel like much of a threat. There's a difference between simplifying your story and focusing on one simple aspect of your story and just rushing the rest of it. You can't do both. And you can't cram both of those into 1 hour's worth of story, because that's not enough time. As said though, it has simplified its focus, and it does actually have character moments with Clara and Danny, so I can, to an extent, look past the major amounts of plot-related weaknesses and plethora of other things that it just doesn't bother with, because at least he's putting effort into something. Even if, yes, I was still really annoyed that the characters have been so underdone all series. Since it actually had that, and Clara's a lot stronger now, it's nowhere near the clown car pile-up the Time of the Doctor was. What I'm saying is, I appreciate what is here, even if this story had so much more it could have offered. I would have made this one 3 parts, to be honest, and done lots more stuff inside the Nethersphere, because it's a really interesting idea. Death in Heaven just feels so rushed. It's got far too many elements at play to get it all wrapped up in just an hour. He's done the same thing again, thrown everything in the kitchen sink in. The first story with a female master deserved better than this. The build towards her, it was nowhere near as face-pummeling as Who is River, and was the same tiresome mystery box can see, but the build-up that he actually did do deserved better than this. Who is Missy is just another example of Moffat focusing on generating empty hype over actually telling his story, and the result was just delivering another wet fart into a bin bag. He's a magician without the actual rabbit inside his hat. All this Master's really done is exist for a bit, kill Osgood, trick the Doctor a couple of times, including tricking him into thinking that Gallifrey's back when it actually isn't, which admittedly resulted in a really cool scene, by the way, easily the best scene in this finale by a long stretch. And then she just vanished. That's it. But I spent so much of this episode going, is she going to come back on screen and do something to actually establish her evil intellectual prowess yet? I mean, this episode did have some dramatic weight. It actually killed characters and didn't have a happy ending, though, given how much Moffat's done that before, don't lie, all of you are waiting for things to take an upward turn again and then go, and everybody lived happily ever after. He's a victim of his own tropes by this point, which will always happen when the amount of episodes you've written passed double digits a long time ago. But yeah, he didn't do that, so he did flaunt my expectations, but what he did do just underwhelmed me as a whole. Certain bits of it I liked and thought were well written, but yeah, it was another of those, okay, Moffat. I did actually like the way that Clara and the Doctor ended it, though, by lying to each other about what they're doing next, and it sort of feels a bit self-aware. It's going, yeah, the Doctor's not too into Clara, and Clara's not too into the Doctor to want to change his mind and see more of the universe. I mean, it gets to the end of their relationship, realising their own feelings for each other, but it kind of draws a line under why lots of us were really not invested in Clara at all, because she and the Doctor aren't suited to each other at all. Finally, everybody on screen has realised something that it didn't take 2 years for those of us watching to figure out. But it is an appropriate ending to Clara's time in the TARDIS, so I will give it that much. Oh wait, what? Wait, she's in the Christmas special. Well, doesn't that undermine the whole bloody thing then? Oh yeah, Moffat, you remember back in the Russell era when an emotional weight down ending would be interrupted with something or someone from the ensuing Christmas special stumble into the TARDIS and David Tennant would look confused and shout, "What?" literally a second afterwards and completely piss all over the mood that your audience was in? Yeah, you also remember how no one liked that. Yeah, this is just further indication of one project I should work on. Find out Moffat's fax number, he does seem like the sort of person who would still have a fax machine, and send him one piece of paper with the word tone written on it in massive bold letters. Oh my god, what is this word? What does it mean? Why would someone send me this word? What is inside your mystery box, mysterious alien word man? All in all, Death in Heaven is nowhere near as good as it could have been if Moffat had actually realised when he'd hit on a good idea and done more of it, and if it had a third part in the middle and let the Master do some more stuff, I'd probably have liked it more. But I will say this for it, it's nowhere near as bad as people are saying it is. But at the same time, I can't help thinking I'm only saying that because I'm pleased that Moffat's actually doing anything for me at all. Because in the end, I just don't think it stacks anywhere near up to his early work. And that's the reason that I'm so harsh a lot of the time. I think he's capable of better than this. I wouldn't call it bad, but I think he's capable of a lot better than this. But guys, I'm not annoyed like lots of people because I just feel like I've seen this episode before. Moffat failing to deliver on promises that were clearly empty to begin with is routine by this point. I've gone through the annoyed stage now. Now I'm just bored and will take whatever he gives me since he's clearly not going anywhere and nothing's going to change because loads of people don't seem to learn from past experiences. Looking at the reaction to Death in Heaven, lots of people seem to have had this moment of going, right, fine, now he's been trying my patience for far too long and I don't care if he's saving lots of it for later. He definitely doesn't have that fictional flowchart I was convinced he had. But it keeps happening. Every series, everyone keeps convincing themselves he's back on track, he has that flowchart. Oh, all his loose ends will be tied up in the Christmas special, or in Series 9, and it ends up exactly the same thing, because Moffat is severely overworked and desperately needs a long holiday to step backwards and take a look at things from a broader perspective. Only then will he be able to stop endlessly recycling the same tropes that he's stuck on, which is making Doctor Who incredibly predictable. We're getting the same story from the same writer every year. It's not that Moffat's bad, but what I said last time, he, like all creatives, is limited and he is only human. Some people reach this point at Wedding of River Song. Loads more reach this point at Day of the Doctor. Time of the Doctor seemed to be the clincher that made it okay for people to come out and say, alright, I haven't thought his recent work has been anywhere near as great as we all thought it was going to be. But then everything just went back to normal again in the hype up to Season 8, before he delivers us yet another letdown and the exact same experience. I feel like I've been stuck on a Mobius strip this entire time. We keep doing this to ourselves, and we keep buying into Moffat's empty hype because we're Whovians till we die. Just if, mind you, you were massively let down by Death in Heaven like lots of people were, I wasn't, I enjoyed it for what it was, just try and remember that feeling when everyone starts doing the same dance again next time, okay?